Hey guys, welcome to another Planty video. In this one, I'm going to feature my alocasia collection. So you can look forward to a tour. And because so many of you guys have messaged me on Instagram for tips on how to grow alocasia from corms, I'm going to walk you guys through my step-by-step process that guarantees success every time. So you can also grow your alocasia collection for free this way. And I'm going to give you guys my top 5 tips for caring for them like a pro. You'll be growing them like a pro too. Once you practice these, it's probably 5 or 6 tips, to be honest, that really have them thriving. And maybe for you beginners, I will definitely recommend 5 and I will rank them for you all so that you can also get into the action. So basically, you can look forward to my 5 easiest allocations for beginners in this video as well. Okay, to kick things off, I'm going to start with my Alocasia Dragon's Breath or my Alocasia Heterophylla. It's pretty banged up right now, having moved into this storeroom or plant room that I'm using as temporary storage. So it has moved true from a true outdoor setting, I would say, at my old location to indoors here. And thankfully, I repotted it a few months, about 3 or 4 months before I moved it into my plant room. This is a reel I made for Instagram showing exactly how I repotted it. I never rush to repot my alocasias. They love to be root bound, but when the roots start coming out the top, that's when I would repot it. So the majority of them grew in semi-hydro. This one was repotted, as you see here, into a bigger vessel that it's still growing in up to this day, and that's what it used to look like before I moved it in. Here's a closer look at the repotting process for the ones that I grow in semi-hydro. Usually I top dress all my alocasia with moss to encourage rooting from the upper parts of the stem, and once I see roots popping out the top, that's when I repot. So all of them are growing with a leca reservoir at the bottom and pond to the top. I never let that leca reservoir dry out. I always water using Great White after, just to help prevent trauma from disturbing the roots. But again, I wait as long as I could before I repot my alocasia. That's like my number one tip for growing them. Do not repot unless absolutely necessary. Now that I've got my number one tip out of the way, I'm going to run through the tour with you guys and then I'll get into more details after. This is my Alocasia Scalprum, and next to it is my Alocasia Mellow. This one is pretty massive. I only have 2 leaves on that right now. It dropped one. Again, the trauma in this space is showing at this point. This is my Alocasia Bisma. This one, however, is pushing new growth. I have some new big roots at the bottom there and it's pushing a new leaf. To the back of my Bisma is my Alocasia Frydek. That's a variegated version of the Alocasia Michelitziana. Later on, I will show you guys what this plant used to look like. It is reverting currently as it's receiving low light. I also have to top dress that stem to encourage more rooting to the top where the stem is exposed. This is my Alocasia Michelitziana to the front of it. It is sizing up nicely. I grew this one from a corm, so I'm really proud of it. It's also growing in semi-hydro, both of them in clear vessels. Well, all of them that are grown in semi-hydro are in clear vessels so that I can have a clear visual of the roots. This is my Alocasia Silver Dragon that popped out a new leaf recently and a couple babies, so I'm really happy about that. Also, if you notice, my vessels are mildew riddled or it's got algae in it. Don't worry about it at all. It does absolutely nothing to the growth. This is what my Alocasia Frydek used to look like when it was growing outside, so it has reverted in my plant room. I am hoping my greenhouse settings will cause the variegation to come back. Also, here's a fun fact. The name Alocasia Frydek was meant for the variegated version of the Alocasia Michelitziana. So when you hear me say Alocasia Frydek in this video, I'm really referring to the variegated Michelitziana. Okay, back to the tour. This is my variegated black velvet. It is pushing really nice variegation here. It sits directly next to this opening, so it receives direct light throughout the day. It's also giving me a new leaf, so I'm super excited for that one to unfurl. I'll keep you guys posted on Instagram with this one. It is in quite a unique setup. I was terrified to repot it. Like I said, I put this off as much as I could, so I sit the original nursery pot into a clear container with lacquer just to keep the humidity high enough surrounding the nursery pot so that it still gets moisture. This one is my Alocasia longiloba that's coming back, and this is another Alocasia michelitziana. I always have a bunch of props going just in case or as backup for my mother plant. So you'll see a number of them here, all just growing in lack of the while. As they continue to grow, I transfer them to pond. This is a prop of my Alocasia Frydek. I grew this one from corm. When I'm growing from corm, I only use lacquer. As the plants mature, then I transfer them to pon. But I'm noticing now, having grown them for years, they really don't need transferring, and I'll get into more details about this later on in the video. This is another prop. This is about three plants in one pot of my Alocasia Green Shield. It is quite floppy here because on the day of filming, I transferred it to that vessel. So it's going through some trauma there. This is my Alocasia Odora that was so nicely gifted to me from Countryside Blooms. This is my Alocasia Jacqueline. That is such a struggle plant for me. And next to it is my Alocasia Stingray. There are a ton of plants growing out of there. This one is quite happy, unlike the Jacqueline. This is my Alocasia Aslanii that is now coming back. It dropped all its leaves. It was not happy at all with the transition, but at least you can see it's coming back. And like I said before, don't worry about the algae or the mildew that's growing in these vessels. This is coming back happily. This is what my Alocasia Aslanii used to look like before I moved it into the plant room. It is a deeper purple with pink undertones. It can present very electric veins at times or really bright veining depending on the light that you give it. Mine sits in a very dim spot. It is a jewel orchid, jewel orchid, it's a jewel alocasia. So it doesn't require much light as it's an understory plant, but even though you're seeing nice healthy leaves here, this one is a really hard grow for me. I really don't have much to share on it. I really am just looking to find that sweet spot and hopefully it thrives. Coming in next is my Alocasia Mellow. This is one of my favorite ones. Like, I can't stress on how obsessed I am with this one. It's the texture for me and the color itself. The veining is muted, but the pattern is crazy. Like, you need to touch this and see it in real to understand my obsession. But this one is super happy here. It's put out a bunch of babies. This is footage from my old space. I actually moved these down this week. This is my Alocasia Zebrina that's pushing a new leaf here. I hope it continues to come out as I move them down. These are some green shield props, and this is my Alocasia Pink Dragon. The name was given because of the pink stems, but the backs are super gorgeous, purple and very vibrant. This is a closer look at my pink dragon with those purple backs, and this is what I grew my Alocasia Green Shield from. It evolved into this massive beauty growing outdoors. It really is an easy one for me. And next to it is my Alocasia Regal Shield. This has become a favorite of mine. The leaves are black. It is massive, it is super easy care, and believe it or not, it's growing in soil. And next to it is my Alocasia Green Shield. This is what it looks like today. It has dropped a few leaves because of neglect. I'm not in that space as often as I used to. Here is my Alocasia longiloba. This one is coming back from stem rot, so it only has one leaf right now, but it's growing in pond. It has super purple backs. It is like the giant version of the Alocasia bambino that I'll show you guys later on. But I'm so happy it's coming back. This grows to be super tall, and I'm hoping to have it as a statement piece in my home. And basically, I have well, I think I found a sweet spot for my alocasia in my home. I've been testing out my alocasia black velvet. This is it here inside the house, and it is thriving to say the least. And on this shelf, I also have my colocasia mojito and my alocasia sinuata here, and another mellow. Here is my Alocasia cuprea. It's another type of dual alocasia. It put out that new leaf recently at the new house. Don't ask me how this little black velvet got in there. I probably set those two combs together and forgot about it. But I'm featuring my cuprea here and it's doing pretty well. This is a close-up of how pink it can get. I believe it's the Alocasia cuprea Red Secret. So that's the variety I have. Okay, and this is the last one for the tour. It's my Alocasia bisma. I made a mistake before and mentioned that my nebula was actually my bisma, but this is my bisma. I'm going to give you guys the best advice that I can to grow alocasias like a pro, and then I'm going to rank my top 5 best alocasias for beginners. So stick around and I'll show you how to make these plants love you back. So how I know what I know now about alocasia care is because all of these that you're seeing in this clip, I have killed. So they are no longer with me, but I'm showing you guys this because everyone that I know who has tried to grow alocasia or has tried to grow plants in general has killed a few. But for me, what I did was I really, really paid attention to what went wrong with these. And basically, the commonality between them was that they were all growing in soil. And for me, I just could not get a handle on the watering, or I just couldn't understand the watering requirements, and they all died. Here's a great example of what I mean. So initially, the plant will start to show signs of stress. Predominantly, you're going to see a lot of yellowing, drooping leaves, leaves just dropping off, and cooling. This means that the plant has experienced root rot. So I still tried to grow in soil because, just for my own edification, I still try to understand, well, what exactly is the issue with the soil mix? So what I did was I thoroughly examined this plant and removed, like you saw previously, all the dead roots and the soil that the roots rotted in and replaced it with a super chunky mix like this. So, having created this sort of a chunky mix, I still placed my Bisma back in that mix, removed all the dead foliage or the damaged foliage, and continued to try and root it in soil to which it is still in today. This worked amazingly well. The best way to describe the soil mix was basically to make a Monstera mix and put it in that. That is what worked crazy well. As you can see here, so much new growth, so many new leaves. It was just like magic in my mind. But as you would have seen in the video before, I only replaced the bottom portion of the soil where the rotted roots were abundant. I did not disturb the upper roots because, as I said in the beginning, I try to not repot these plants or disturb the roots in general as much as I can because I know they love to be root bound. So I didn't want to transition this now to semi-hydro, which I'm more comfortable with presently because the plant was already stressed. So it didn't make sense to stress it out even more by having it adjust to a new substrate. So this is why I went the route of making that Monstera mix and putting it in that. And basically, these were the results if you want to try it. So as I continued to basically live and learn with my plants, here is my black velvet that was growing in soil until I transferred it to semi-hydro, specifically leca only. The results were crazy when I transferred it to leca. Look at it. The growth was exponential. This is it presently, and it is in the same exact setup, except the plant obviously grew and grew over the year and got taller. So all I did was I added a collar and I backfilled that with lacquer, as you'll see in the next frame coming up, just because again I did not want to repot it. But I think I'm confident enough now to repot it, do some root pruning, and even if it dies back, I know it's going to stay in that setup for years. So I'm not afraid to report it at this point, knowing the results. And this brings me to another point, which is that I have gotten so confident using leca that I started propagating my corm using leca alone. I'll reveal this method later on in the video, step by step, walking you guys through in case you want to give it a go. But it is, the success rate is like 99%. I've had people message me and say this is the best thing I've ever showed them. They are able to, grow so many alocasia successfully now. So I'll go through it in detail with you guys later on in the video. But another substrate that I use is Lechuzapon. And this basically gives the same results as the leca, as it's another semihydro substrate. And the great thing about using the semihydro is that you can see the water line, so you know if you're overwatering your plant. Okay, so now that you know what's my substrate of choice, I'm going to move into something that haunts people, and that's the pest problem. So for me, I don't really have that spider mite problem because I simply just keep my leaves clean and I spray with neem once a week. And my issue is really this massive iguana or iguanas in general that just have been traversing my space as well as grasshoppers. So I am really hoping to solve these problems by installing my greenhouse to just keep these pests out because that is really my main problem growing alocasia. These pests really are difficult to control. I really have not had any success with trying to control these or just eliminate them in general. But amidst all that, I really cannot give up on this genus of plants. I absolutely love alocasia. I think they are just show-stopping. The foliage is so unique too, depending on the variety that you have or the species that you have. It is such a joy and is absolutely rewarding to grow them. And if you wanna give them a go, I'm gonna tell you exactly what you need to know, and I'm going to start you off with my top picks for beginners. So stick around, and right after I show you how to propagate them, I will reveal which ones you should start with to help you get your alocasia journey going. Okay, so let's double back to my alocasia heterophylla or my alocasia dragon's breath, and let's get into how to propagate these. I also recommend that you do give it a go to try and grow alocasia from corm, because once they grow in your care from corm, it means it's already acclimated to your space, and it's going to be a dream or easy peasy basically to grow them in your space because they're already accustomed or they have been birthed there, so they are most comfortable there already, as opposed to buying a new one and having to acclimate it to your space, which is highly stressful for alocasias, and you tend to lose a ton of leaves and then you get stressed out. So let me take you through my corm growing process. So basically, this is what a corm looks like. It's attached to the mother plant by that tail, for lack of a better word. There we go. It's called a stolon. Basically, that's how the corm gets nutrition from the mother plant. These are a couple in my prop tree that have all grown from corm. Again, don't worry about the mildew that you're seeing there. It's absolutely harmless. And I left it in there and didn't clean up for you all to see the real deal and to see that it really is not something to be bothered about. But all of those are grown from corm, and these we are going to set. We're going to remove the stolon in each, as you'll see shortly, and set them on a bed of leca that you see there. And basically, once the corm starts to root, it will gain nutrition via the leca, as I basically put nutrient water in there, but only when the leca starts to root. For now, it'll just sit in water, but as it starts to root, I add Super Thrive so that the corm can continue to get nutrition via that avenue, because it's no longer attached to the mother plant and will need nutrition to grow. I just want to show you guys a corm that's covered in mildew. Here I'm squeezing it to show you that absolutely nothing is happening. It doesn't cause rot per se, and you'll see that I'm putting it back in because I'm absolutely unbothered, but it is good practice to keep your setup clean. In my experience anyway, it doesn't cause rot. What causes rot is when the corms sit in water in the humidity chamber for too long. So having demonstrated this for you guys, I will clean this setup up just as good health practice for myself, and you should do so as well because these particles can go airborne and can cause health issues. So it is good practice to keep your setups clean. So anyway, back to the setup. Once you've sit your corms down onto a bed of lacquer, I place them into a humidity chamber to allow the corms to sprout. Once they push out that second leaf, I take them out of the chamber and I put them into their own dedicated vessel to continue rooting and growing in. And finally, here are my top 5 easiest or best alocasias to start with if you're a beginner coming up next. Coming in at spot number 5, believe it or not, it is my Alocasia Frydek. This one is super easy going. The care is pretty basic. Once you set it up in good lighting, you have nothing else to do. Coming in at spot number 4 is Alocasia Dragon's Breath. I know you guys are going to be worried about spider mites, but trust me, all you have to do is keep your leaves clean. In spot number 3 is Alocasia Regal Shield. In this case, don't be worried about growing it in semi-hydro if you find it's too expensive. A Monstera mix will do this one fine. In spot number 2 is Alocasia Green Shield. This will grow in any substrate of your choice in any lighting conditions that you have. It really is truly easygoing. And the top spot for me, anyway, and all of this is based on my growing experience here in Trinidad, definitely goes to my Alocasia Black Velvet. With all of that said, my number one tip for growing alocasia is try to grow multiples in a pot for that bushy, lush look, and to always have a spider mite treatment on hand just in case you can't keep up with cleaning your leaves. I use Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew or Safer's Endall that you can get at Home and Garden. Everything you saw in this video and everything I mentioned will be linked in the description below. Please remember to like and subscribe if you did enjoy this content or did enjoy this video. It helps me to continue to make this type of content for you guys. And be sure to follow me on Instagram if you'd like to know where I purchased each and every one of these. They are all posted to my Instagram profile with the seller's information. So thank you so much for viewing. If you are returning, if you are new, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you guys in the next one.